It has been a very, very long saga, really almost a decade, sort of in total. But WikiLeaks' Julian Assange has been arrested in London, and there's so much to talk about here. There's the sort of immediate legal implications. There are the broader questions about what happens first and what happens later, because there are a variety of different legal claims against Assange, and we're going to talk about all of it. If you've not been following it, or just to kind of get everybody up to speed, Julian Assange of WikiLeaks has been in the Ecuadorian embassy in London for 7 years now, thanks to Ecuadorian asylum that was granted to him. And this latest development was not totally surprising in terms of the rescinding of that asylum by the Ecuadorian embassy, because we've been covering for a couple of months, including on the bonus show, how the Ecuadorian embassy was sort of increasingly in conflict with Assange over. There were sort of more and less cartoonish versions of the story, but basically his discourteous and aggressive behavior is the word they use. There were rumors swirling about not cleaning up after his cat and sort of more cartoonish things. I don't know the full scope of that, but in one case or another, he now is no longer protected by asylum by the Ecuadorian embassy. And immediately after that rescinding or revocation took place, British police went into the embassy and arrested Julian Assange. Now, we have learned about a 2017 U.S. federal court indictment which charges Assange for conspiring to publish classified documents, which were some of which were obtained by Chelsea Manning, who you may remember did, I believe it was 7 years herself before ultimately being let out by President Barack Obama. And when it comes to extradition, that's the immediate question. The United States has filed an extradition request to the UK. The US and the UK have an extradition agreement, so he will likely, at some point, have to deal with the American justice system, but that may not happen immediately because Assange has unresolved business with UK authorities first. Because you might recall, and it's been so many years at this point, I mean, it's amazing all that's happened politically while Julian Assange has just been in the Ecuadorian embassy. But back in 2012, Assange jumped UK bail. So he faces up to a year in prison in the UK, and this could just be the start of a very, very long process. And the political implications have gotten particularly interesting because during the time that Assange has been in the Ecuadorian embassy, we have now learned about the connections between WikiLeaks to Russia and the DNC and Hillary Clinton hacks and the Mueller probe and the 2016 election. Everything that right now is happening in terms of the UK bail jumping and the 2017 sealed indictment, none of this stuff has anything to do with Russia. But you may recall from a couple of weeks ago from the William Barr letter about the Robert Mueller report, you may recall from my report 6 months ago, 12 months ago, a year and a half ago, that during the time Assange was in the Ecuadorian embassy, WikiLeaks released tens of thousands of emails that were stolen from the DNC and from Hillary Clinton by Russia, from the Hillary Clinton campaign by Russia. This is part of Robert Mueller's investigation, and as far as we were told by William Barr's 4-page letter, to the extent that we can believe it, and hopefully soon we'll have more specific information about this, WikiLeaks is also part of Mueller's report. And when Assange went into the embassy, there was still the idea, or maybe the possibility, that WikiLeaks was not a partisan actor, but just a clearinghouse of information. That has drastically changed while Julian Assange has been in the Ecuadorian embassy. We now know that WikiLeaks is a partisan actor. That's not a good or a bad thing. I want to be super clear that people understand. When I say WikiLeaks is a partisan actors are fine, right? I don't have a problem with partisan actors as long as they are identified as such and presented as such. And we know that WikiLeaks was working as a sort of middleman for hacked emails from the DNC, from Hillary Clinton's campaign, by Russia for the purpose of helping Donald Trump defeat Hillary Clinton in 2016. Now, it's not at all clear right now whether that will at some point relate to any criminal charges against Julian Assange. There's a lot that he has that has to be cleared up before we even get to the point of talking about could anything related to Russia or Mueller connect to criminal charges. So that is sort of in a remains to be seen phase. And then there's also the possibility of these so-called dead man switches that have been mentioned before. We don't really know the full scope or extent of it right now, but there were claims made that Julian Assange had set up different caches of documents, caches of information, which if he doesn't prevent their release by checking in electronically every once in a while, either by pinging a certain email address or entering a password somewhere. The logistics don't really matter. The idea is if he were to be killed or captured, that by not preventing the release of certain documents, they would automatically be released, maybe published by Wikileaks, maybe sent to media outlets. What is the status of that? We don't know. And now that Julian Assange has been arrested, that is also going to be a question which may be answered sooner or later. It's also unclear whether an arrest versus Assange being killed would trigger it or not. Presumably there are other WikiLeaks associates that would be involved in either preventing or allowing the publishing of some of these documents. So that's a really big question mark as well. And there are significant legal implications as well. We recently had a conversation on the show about leaker versus whistleblower, and there are no doubt if this ultimately does lead to extradition to the United States, if anything related to Russia ultimately becomes a legal problem for WikiLeaks and Assange, there are going to be renewed discussions of the sort of legal status and treatment of whistleblowers versus leakers versus partisan actors who are publishing illegally obtained information. There will be plenty of time to discuss all of those things. But the latest for now, Assange arrested just hours ago, and we will see what the next step is here. In this certain to be, this could end up being a multi-decade affair in total for Julian Assange and for WikiLeaks. Today's program brought to you in part by Blinkist.com/Pakman. Blinkist is a great service that I use all the time. What they do is they take thousands of the most popular nonfiction books, including the newest bestsellers. They condense them into 15-minute audiobooks that you can listen to, and you still get the most crucial information and insights from each book. And I've listened to a ton of books on Blinkist. I recently checked out Soccernomics by Simon Cooper. We do have, after all, the World Cup going on recently. We also have been talking about BS Jobs, and there is a great new book, BS Jobs by David Graeber, which I listen to on Blinkist. They're constantly adding new books to the platform. You will never run out of fascinating and critically acclaimed books to enjoy. And our audience can get a 7-day free trial by going to Blinkist.com/Pakman. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm putting a link in the video description. And after the free trial, if you like it, you can continue enjoying thousands of condensed audiobooks for about $5 a month. That's BLINKIST.com/PAKMAN.